Hello and welcome to Brand Buzz, a show that delves deep into the marketing landscape. And today we are discussing about insurance marketing that has usually had, quote unquote, a very security-led communication. But how is ICICI Lombard really connecting with the young audience that want content that resonates with them? To weigh in on that, we now have Sheena Kapoor joining in on the show. Thanks, Sheena. Thank you so much for joining us on ET Now.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sheena, let's talk about the demographics for insurance space that has been evolving over a period of time. We have more and more younger clients who are coming into the fold. But, as far as the marketing for insurance is concerned, it has been a quote unquote a little boring or stability driven, but the younger audience doesn't really resonate with that. So how have you reoriented yourself for the younger demographics that's come into the fold?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because you're very right that by and large BFSI, including insurance category, tends to be very boring. I think a large part of that as a culprit is, you've got to be within the guidelines and, the playbook of compliance. And since we're a very tightly regulated, category and in an environment, so a lot of the out-of-the-box creative thinking you would possibly see in a lot of other categories like FMCG or apparel or auto, which you would not be able to see as much in the insurance or BFSI space. Having said that, I think it would be travesty and a truism to say that a lot of the BFSI brands or insurance brands, including ICICI Lombard, that we do very boring run-of-the-mill stuff. I think at ICICI Lombard, we are very keen and very particular on adopting, generative AI tools, innovation, out-of-the-box thinking in terms of narrative, storytelling. And you mentioned about younger demogs. Yes, even as a population, as a country, you're talking about a significant part of the population today that falls in the Gen Z and the Alpha range. And that also brings about a massive opportunity for future in terms of the lifetime value of the customer. And this category or cohort of customers, they're very digital native. They're digital first, In the traditional model, a lot of the insurance selling was driven, and even today, to a large extent, it is intermediary driven. In the olden era, you would have the typical, stereotypical, LIC agent knocking on doors and selling insurance agent. Whereas today's Gen is very clear that they want, digital first as an experience, from an adoption, from a service delivery. And whether it is from a research perspective, they're getting onto the internet, they are looking at YouTube, they're looking at a lot of content creators to figure out what is the best solution and investment, even from an insurance perspective or a cover that they should be going in for. Even today, as policy issuances, a lot of even at ICICI Lombard, we are virtually all paperless. The entire policy issuance, which hitherto in the traditional model used to be, physical copies being delivered, to your home. Today, it is completely the entire journey from purchase right up to claims to renewal is enabled, empowered on WhatsApp. So I think tectonic shifts have happened for marketers and brands. We are using a lot of content collaborations and co-creating our narrative and storytelling with influencers. We are using, a different format of reels, whether it is, on Insta, which is platform, specific, and it's not a cookie cutter solution. From a narrative storytelling, we are using a lot of gamification. We're using a lot of Gen AI just to be able to appeal to the new gen. It's a lot more conversational. It's a lot more authentic. It's a lot more real. It's also a lot more attuned with the values that the new gen really stands for.
Sheena, that was my next question. In fact, you've answered that for a very digitally first consumer, you're reorienting yourself to fit into that. But as far as the campaigns are concerned, we've seen a couple of campaigns like gamification, you've used music, you've used influencers. But having said that, every brand perhaps has taken cognizance of the fact that, this is where the action is. And by virtue of that, technology has become a very big differentiator as well. So how is ICICI Lombard, what's your USP?
So, and again, you're right, technology has become, table stakes today. If you are not reinventing yourself, if you're not keeping step with the advent of technology, you are going to be a laggard. And, there is just no option, I mean, you're compelled to reinvent yourself and walk the talk with technology levers. Having said that, at ICICI Lombard, we have, like I mentioned earlier, innovation has been a cornerstone of most of our campaigns and communication. So to give you an example, a lot of the brands today, and the buzzword is Gen AI, right?
Yeah.
You're talking, a plethora of Gen AI tools. We were the first to launch in the country as an industry-first initiative. And I'm not just talking about insurance, I'm talking about across BFSI and possibly across other categories of e-commerce or FMCG. In way back 2023, we're sitting here today chatting in July 2025. Way back in 2023, we launched our entire Gen AI campaign, which was Claim Your Calm. And the entire principle that it was really based upon was peace of mind. And we took the analogy of meditation and, a lot of the meditative journey that you will experience, say, with apps like Calm or Headspace, where you're talking about, elevating your anxiety, bringing about peace of mind, which really, if you look at it fundamentally, is what insurance provides you, peace of mind. We launched that campaign, which was completely scripted, edited, produced, using Gen AI tools, and way back in 2023. I'm also very pleased to share that we've been on, pushing the boundaries, pushing the envelope and raising the bar with every subsequent campaign. Talking about our Trip Secure product, which is actually a travel insurance product. This product is actually powered by AI itself. The product itself brings you a lot of hyper-personalization and is able to provide you covers which are customized to your needs. And because the product itself was powered by AI, we said, we didn't want to do the regular run-of-the-mill ad or even a creative jingle. We actually used Gen AI, and again, happy to share we're the India's first Gen AI created brand anthem for a product, and India's first, I'm talking, and it's a very catchy tune where in the playbook of a song itself, and if you hear the song, you would actually, believe that it is out of, some music album, whereas actually it is from the stables of a non-music label insurance brand like ICICI Lombard. And through the storytelling of the song itself, with very catchy beats and, rhythm, we've been able to highlight situations and the need for travel insurance and what Trip Secure, really does. And even from an amplification standpoint, we embedded this anthem with platforms like Spotify, with radio, where it was very seamless in terms of, the amplification, where even as a listener or, when you're really driving or commuting, within the city or outside, it's part of your playlist. So it's completely seamless, and it's only later that you realize, oh my God, that's actually a brand message from ICICI Lombard. We are amongst the industry firsts on multiple accounts. Our ICICI Take Care app, which is our flagship app, mobile app, it's focused and hinges not just on entire transaction and enablement of, claims or policy issuance or purchase through the app, but we are actually focused on, and nearly you're talking about 20 million subscribers, where you're giving access to the consumer to a plethora of preventive and wellness solutions. You have 24/7 e-pharmacy. You've got, you can book an ambulance. You can book a video consultation with doctors. You will get meal plan. You will get step trackers. There is, consultation, and there is collaboration with, health practitioners and experts, and trying to build about the entire ethos and ecosystem of well-being. and wellness.
Right. Sheena, but like you mentioned, insurance is a very regulated space. So you have to work within a certain framework, right? So how do you manage, how do you strike a balance between that regulated framework, also having a meaningful communication, because that is also a very important part of what you're selling, and having a communication that really resonates with the young audience?
Right. So I've already given examples of, say Trip Secure or even our Claim Your Calm campaign. We spoke about earlier younger gen, right? Now, as a younger gen audience, you know that they have high affinity with gaming, right? We now decided to take gaming, and we went through a lot of deliberation. We went through a lot of routes and a lot of ideation, and brainstorming before we actually finalized on, the creative route. And, it's again in collaboration and tandem with our creative partners. We decided to bring alive the entire message and communication of insurance through gamification. And what we took as a narrative, as an analogy, was the game of life.
So the core message or the insight doesn't change. It's just the communication that probably changes, or the method of.
Yes, because it's the narrative and the storytelling where I'm making it more creative, I'm making it more conversational. I have brought about innovation, I've brought about a change in the format to make it more younger, to make it more refreshing, to make it more differentiated, clutter breaking, as well as appealing to the younger gen, right? And the entire film and campaign of Game of Life rests on the principle that life itself is a game, right? And therefore, from an insurance category perspective, it's so uncertain that tomorrow you don't know what may really happen, an unfortunate event or a situation. And it's really insurance that, has your back and, which empowers you to lead a frictionless life to, to the best possible scenario if you're well and adequately covered. And the entire communication of Game of Life was through the character and through the entire, playbook of gaming. So as the character walks, he or she is, gaining points. Finally, you respawn. You actually fall, but you respawn, which the analogy is that with insurance, you come back on your feet. You bounce back to your feet.
Yeah, very interesting. Sheena, those are very interesting campaigns that you mentioned. Tell us what has been the role of AI, and like you mentioned, you've been using a lot of technology and AI in generating these campaigns. Talk to us about that, and also how data-led, how data-driven have you been? Because AI has also enabled a lot of data generation and a lot of personalization, if you will. How have you been leveraging that?
So again, I think there has been underlying shifts that have happened, in the category, and not just in insurance and BFSI and, by and large across. One is you've moved from a transactional to a more experiential space. The second is you've moved from a more reactive to a preventive space. And, the third is you've moved from a very generic or a cookie cutter solution to a more hyper-personalized space. So these have been your three larger trends. Yes. And, AI, Gen AI, ML, data science, we have been leveraging a lot of these levers at ICICI Lombard. And if you look at from a consumer, journey cycle, right from purchase, our digital acquisition today, earlier there was a lot of offline traditional models. Today you're relying a lot on a lot of digital tools for engagement, for acquisition. I'm using Gen AI and AI modeling for risk assessment, for risk underwriting. Our claims team is using AI tools to understand the claim behaviors, the triggers. Even we have embedded, AI tools in terms of the claim estimation. And that has also led to a lot of operational efficiencies in terms of the tax, in terms of the amounts that,
But have you been able to quantify that?
Yes, of course. So today you're talking about on our, like I mentioned, on our ICICI Take Care app, we've got 20 million subscribers. Our over 70% of our acquisition is through digital and search models. Our partnerships with fintech and a lot of the, embedded insurance providers and mobility is contributing over 30% of our revenues. We are talking about, even on claims, you're talking about in the duration of, under 1 hour, you're talking about as high as 75% of our claims on the health side being done under 1 hour using a lot of these AI tools. Motor insurance, over 95% of our claims are, completely cashless. And it's not just, on the AI, like in the marketing space, one is using Gen AI tools for content creation, for video, for editing, for production, for translation, for, for our customer service team is using, for NLP, your chatbots, your, even your policy document, if a consumer wants to understand the FAQs, wants to understand inclusions, exclusions, it's as simple as just chatting on your WhatsApp, or it's, voice-based, and there are very transient and very intelligent bots. We are talking to you and mimicking the human accents, and we're now bringing it to the next edge of technology, where you're using it to bring it as closer to multiple dialects and talking in the authentic accent in the regional space that they belong to. But we were the first insurer to move our entire data to cloud computing on AWS. We are also the first insurer to move from risk and disaster recovery onto AWS. We've been on the cutting edge, like I said, even on products. Our Trip Secure product is an AI-powered product. Our hero product on health insurance that we launched last year, Elevate itself is an AI-powered product.
So we've spoken about all the good things that have happened, the tectonic shifts, and how you've been reorienting yourselves to it. But talk to us about the challenges of the, not just the insurance marketing space. I mean, of course, regulations would be one of them, but what have been your challenges in terms of the fact that perhaps everybody is jumping onto the same bandwagon called AI?
So I think for us, we have been far ahead as innovators and pioneers in this journey. So I don't see, others getting onto the bandwagon of, Gen AI as an impediment or as a challenge. I think we, as brand custodian, and also we're the largest private general insurance company of the country, it really falls on us as a market leader to be able to demonstrate innovation, to be able to demonstrate, why we enjoy the trust of over 50 million policyholders, and why we also bear that responsibility of being market leader and torchbearer, for the industry at large. So for me, I think what I would see is, one of the challenges as a marketer is the fact that, and it's the age-old question about attribution modeling, right? Where you're able to demonstrate the exact ROI that brand and the acquisition or the brand aura from, and if I talk about metrics, it's awareness, consideration, preference, and all of that, and how much of that there directly attributes to your conversions, and therefore linked to that is an entire full funnel campaign management. So today, with large organizations, while we're trying to integrate a lot of it, it still tends to be, there are a lot of disparate systems, or you have silos. So as a marketer, the challenge is to be able to have one view of the customer journey, right from all the monies that you're spending on the brand or the acquisition side to be, right up to the conversion. And you will still have to walk that fine balance of performance versus, brand building. The third challenge that I see is really about, as a brand custodian, to be able to maintain your leadership stance. While we are the market leaders, in terms of in the private GI space and number 2 overall, to be able to enjoy and maintain that leadership stance in a very increased competitive environment, where you've got newer players entering, where, the marketing budgets at my disposal, vis-a-vis some of the peers in the industry, I mean, the difference is manifold, and the order of magnitude is very high, right? But for me to be able to, therefore, it also compels me that every rupee or marketing dollar that one spends, you're able to justify and has a very strong interlinked ROI. But the challenge therefore remains to be able to maintain the category leadership. And linked to that from a very soft space is when you talk about insurance, there are a lot of, perceptions. Some of them, there are myths. Some bit there is some truth to this, but there is a lot of negative sentiment also that resides as a larger population in the customer's mind because of some other mis-selling or some not so ideal practices on the claims side, right, where you want to be able to enjoy and hold on to the trust of the customer.
So from what I see is perhaps, despite the tectonic shifts that you have been, adapting to, the problems or the challenges at the marketer levels remains the same perhaps since years. I've been, hearing the problems that you just stated. So that doesn't change really. But on that note, Sheena, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us.
Likewise. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful chatting with you.